First of all, we're going to talk a little bit about Common Core, okay? And you've probably heard some things about that in the news, and we're not going to debate the politics of it, but we are going to talk about what it means for your kids now at Victor Haen, okay? The Common Core state standards are a set of consistent, high-quality academic goals. They're across the country, and we're going to talk a little bit about that too. They outline what kids should be learning in English language arts and in mathematics, and it's at every grade, K through 12. There are other areas that are potentially going to roll out, but right now it's math and it's English language arts. So in the ELA, I'm sure you can figure that out, but that's your reading and your writing. They define the knowledge and skills that students should master by the end of each grade level. So when we talk about progress reports a little bit later, that's really important for you to understand because it's different. When you look at that progress report, we're talking about end of year, for the most part, we're talking about end of year standards. So, if the standard is a certain thing and it's only assessed, just started to talk about it now, it's really hard to say they've mastered it when they've got a whole, good chunk of the school year left to do. And we'll talk more about that as we go along. The goals in the standards is for each student to graduate from high school fully prepared to enter college or the workforce. So you'll hear that a lot. It's career and college readiness, and that's really the focus of the Common Core state standards, and really trying to have that unified from first, 4K all the way through senior high school to prepare kids for the real world. Right now, 45 states and most of the territories in the United States have adopted Common Core, and the darker states are the ones that have not. And again, lots of politics in this, and I guess my only part I'm going to say about this is when you're talking about math and reading, those tend to be less political. The ones that are coming out, science and social studies, tend to be more political. So that's kind of where things are, the debate starts. It's harder to, in my mind, put a spin one way or the other on a math standard because this is how you do math. But whether you cover a certain standard in social studies, that can be a little more controversial at times. And I think that's where some of the excitement over the issue is coming from. But right now, the only ones that are working are English, language arts, and math. Mrs. Early.
I get to talk to you today about English language arts and what that means and what the Common Core has done and what big shifts there are within that area. And so the first thing that you'll notice on this pie chart is that English language arts has some new components to it. So we're not just talking about reading and writing anymore. They've added in reading foundational skills, which are those essential background skills that kids need to be successful with reading. So things like phonics and fluency and comprehension. They've added in a language component, which is going to be your grammar, your spelling, and something new. We're really focusing on vocabulary. And then they've also added in speaking and listening skills. So putting an emphasis on the fact that kids need to be able to communicate the things that they're learning and explain the things that they're learning with people around them. So that is new. Other things that you're going to notice within ELA that have changed, we're really taking the focus away from literature and putting the focus onto nonfiction or informational text types. So in the past, our kids primarily read in school, like 70% of it was literature, fiction. And so now we're seeing in K through 4, we're really trying to get a 50-50 split. Because most of the time when kids leave school, when you're out in the real world, you're reading informational text. And so putting a focus on making sure kids can read that text. And then also kind of playing around with what is text and looking at helping kids navigate articles and websites and things that they're going to have to do in the real world. So not so much book reading, but reading all kinds of things and all different types. We also see an emphasis on content area literacy. So we're starting to realize that reading isn't just reading. strategies kids need in order to read a science textbook or to navigate a math textbook. So we're talking about teaching them things that will make them successful readers of different areas. Teaching them how to read instructions, technical text, things that they're going to have to do when they enter the real world. And so we're starting to prepare them in kindergarten already. So looking at different kinds of text. Text complexity is a big one. I'm sure you're all aware of reading levels and how they progress. So we're really trying to raise the bar on where we expect kids to exit a specific grade level and what they're able to read. So we're really focusing on making sure that we're not just exposing kids to their developmental level of text, but also to a grade level exit goal. So if they're supposed to leave it at the level M, we want to make sure that they've had time to be exposed to that level and really work at that level, even though they might not necessarily be able to read all of it. We want to make sure that we give them skills and strategies that will try to help them navigate that text type. We're also focusing a lot on text-based evidence. So when we talk about comprehension and what kids need to be able to retell from what they've read, they also need to be able to state ideas and opinions now and back that up with evidence from the text. So if we're asking a kid to share with us something about a character, they think the character's funny, go back into the book and show us what makes you think that. So bringing in that evidence behind their thinking. Within writing, we have 3 different text types or genres that kids are writing. They used to write a lot of small moment narrative stories. So they were always telling stories about themselves. And we've kind of branched out from that now. We still include narrative writing, but they're doing a lot of informational writing now. So you'll see some all about books, some informational reports on a topic where they've had to do some research and state some facts. And then we also are moving into the idea of opinion argument writing. So being able to state an opinion and then research and find facts and reasons to support that. So we're kind of moving away from one type and exposing them to 3 different kinds of writing. We also have the idea of academic vocabulary. So if they're learning about a specific topic, they need to be able to understand the vocabulary that goes along with it. If they're reading about an animal adaptations, they need to know what specific words go along with that. Camouflage, what does that mean? How can you use it? So we're really trying to build their vocabulary in all different kinds of areas. And then also the focus on communication. So it's not, they need to produce writing, but they also need to be able to share it. They need to have ideas, but they need to be able to communicate them. And then they also need to be able to listen to what others are saying. So really working with them on what does it look like to be in a team? What does it look like to be able to communicate in partnerships? So those are some changes within English language arts.
In the math department, you will see there's a lot of new stuff as well. And the math is now broken up into 2 parts. It's composed of the content, what we want students to know, and then also the math practices, and that's how we want them to show us what they know, that thinking that happens in their mind. And so when you look at the report card and you see that coming home, you're going to see that it looks very different. Because the things that we're asking kids to do is now spelled out in paper instead of it just always happened before, of like the math practices. How do you solve a problem? You persevere, you keep going. So you're going to see that on the report card as well. Math expressions, we have the updated version of the math expressions. We have the Common Core version. So if you haven't, if you've been aware of what has been coming home as far as the math homework, it has stepped up a lot. What's happening now usually happened about mid-year. So the things that are coming home usually was more mid-year-ish, and so it feels different throughout all the grade levels. And so as you move through, we'll have a math morning or a math evening. Something will be coming along here in Haen that you'll be able to come and join us and see what's happening with math.